The previous government did use migrant labour far too much instead of actually building skills here in the UK.
Now, it would appear Labour's approach to these rather important issues is not just misguided, it's downright dangerous for Britain's future. The housing crisis that isn't, or is it?
Labour's housing crisis solution? Give 5 out of 7 new homes to immigrants. At least, that's what Jeremy Clarkson claims Angela Rayner admitted in a shocking live TV interview. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. As Rayner fumbled to explain Labour's contradictory stance on housing and immigration, Clarkson didn't hold back. The result? A political bloodbath that's left Labour scrambling for damage control.
1 million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up. Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses especially...
Well, Rayner began by highlighting a housing crisis only to perform an astonishing U-turn just moments later.
Angela Rayner's recent claims about the UK housing situation have left many scratching their heads. In one breath, she asserts there's plenty of housing available. Yet in the next, Labour pledges to build 1.5 million new homes. This glaring contradiction has not gone unnoticed, especially by sharp-tongued critics like Jeremy Clarkson. Clarkson, never one to mince words, didn't hold back in questioning the logic behind Labour's housing plans. If there's no shortage, he argued, why the need for such massive construction projects? It's a fair question that strikes at the heart of Labour's credibility on this crucial issue. When we look at the real numbers, the picture becomes even murkier. Housing shortages vary dramatically across the UK, with some areas facing severe scarcity while others have a surplus of empty properties. This regional disparity makes it challenging to make blanket statements about nationwide housing availability. Rayner's struggle to reconcile these contradictory stances was painfully evident during the live interview. As Clarkson pressed her for answers, she appeared flustered and ill-prepared to defend Labour's position. Her fumbling responses only served to heighten suspicions about the party's true understanding of the housing crisis. So what's really going on here?
That more than 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants.
Well, that's not the truth, and that's not the
That's
case.
what will happen.
Well, that's not the reality.
Claiming, suddenly, there is plenty of housing already. OK, so there's a bewildering contradiction here, and it's left even the seasoned interviewer, Sir Trevor Phillips, visibly taken aback.
If Labour's housing crisis narrative doesn't hold water, what's driving their ambitious construction agenda? Some speculate that there might be hidden motives at play. Could it be about creating jobs in the construction sector? Or perhaps it's an attempt to appeal to multiple voter demographics simultaneously. The resolution to this conundrum might lie in understanding the political calculus behind Labour's strategy. By promising new homes, they can appeal to those struggling to get on the property ladder. At the same time, by claiming there's sufficient housing, they avoid alienating current homeowners worried about property values dropping due to oversupply. However, this attempt to have it both ways may be backfiring. Clarkson's pointed questioning exposed the fragility of Labour's position, leaving them vulnerable to accusations of doublespeak and policy confusion. As we peel back the layers of Labour's housing stance, more questions emerge than answers. If there isn't a genuine housing crisis driving their agenda, what is? Are we seeing a disconnect between Labour's public statements and their internal planning? Or is this simply a case of poor communication and mixed messages? These questions lead us to an even more intriguing topic: the role of immigration in Labour's housing plans. Clarkson's next bombshell claim about the allocation of new homes to immigrants would send shockwaves through the political landscape, further complicating Labour's already precarious position on housing and immigration policy. Immigration and housing, two hot-button issues that politicians often dance around. But what happens when someone like Jeremy Clarkson decides to tango with both at once? His explosive allegation about Labour's housing allocation plans left Angela Rayner scrambling for cover. Let's unpack this political powder keg. Clarkson's bombshell claimed that 5 out of 7 new homes would be allocated to immigrants sent shockwaves through the political landscape. It's the kind of statement that makes headlines and gets people talking. But is there any truth to it? Or is it just another sensationalist claim?
I wanted to come along and support farmers.
What happens next if they don't listen across the road?
Well, I've got some ideas.
So, whoa, hang on.
affordable
You can't,
homes
on the
that
one
we're
hand, say
building.
we've got to build this 1.5 million houses, and then say there's plenty of housing already.
Rayner's immediate denial was swift and emphatic. She insisted that Clarkson's figures were incorrect, dismissing them outright. But here's where things get interesting. These numbers weren't plucked out of thin air. They were reportedly derived from Labour's own proposals. This begs the question, who's really telling the truth here? Recent immigration trends have certainly put pressure on the UK's housing market. Since Labour came into power, the country has seen an influx of 20,000 new immigrants. That's a significant number of people who need homes, jobs, and access to public services. It's no wonder that housing has become such a contentious issue. Labour's official stance on immigration and housing has been somewhat murky. They've tried to walk a fine line between acknowledging the need for skilled workers and addressing concerns about strain on public resources. But Clarkson's allegations suggest there might be a disconnect between what Labour says publicly and what they're planning behind closed doors. If Clarkson's claims turn out to be true, the political fallout could be catastrophic for Labour.
It's a £2 billion black hole. We protected the most vulnerable pensioners. We put the household support fund in for those that are not eligible for pension credit. I've announced £140 million for new construction hubs so that we can train people here to deliver those housing. So I don't accept that we're going to bring migrants in for that.
Imagine the public reaction if it was confirmed that the majority of new homes were indeed earmarked for immigrants. It would be seen as a betrayal by many voters who are struggling to get on the property ladder themselves. This controversy speaks to larger issues within the Labour Party. There's a growing perception that they're out of touch with the concerns of everyday Britons. The housing crisis affects everyone, from young professionals saving for their first home to families outgrowing their current living situations. If Labour is seen as prioritising the needs of immigrants over long-term residents, it could seriously damage their credibility. Clarkson's critique taps into a broader public frustration with Labour's handling of both housing and immigration. It's not just about the numbers, it's about transparency, accountability, and whether the party truly understands the challenges facing average citizens. The fact that a TV personality like Clarkson is the one bringing these issues to light only underscores the perceived failure of traditional political discourse. As we move forward, this controversy raises important questions about Labour's direction and leadership. How will they address these allegations? Can they regain public trust on such crucial issues? And perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for the future of British politics and policy making? While Labour grapples with housing and immigration controversies, another storm brews at the party's helm.
Violent disorder, clearly whipped up online, that is also a crime. It's happening on your premises.
You want us, the public, to trust you, to like you, to think he's the man for the job, he's doing what he needs to do. Your approval rating is lower than Nigel Farage's right now.
Keir Starmer's unwavering support for Angela Rayner has raised eyebrows across the political spectrum. But what if this seemingly noble act of loyalty becomes the party's Achilles heel? Starmer has been vocal in his defence of Rayner, insisting she's crucial for Labour's return to power and their mission to serve working people. Despite mounting criticism and public frustration over Rayner's performance, Starmer stands firm. This stubborn loyalty, however, might be increasingly out of step with the electorate's concerns. The contrast between Starmer's steadfast backing and growing public dissatisfaction is stark. Labour's recent polling numbers paint a troubling picture. Voters are expressing increasing dissatisfaction with the party's direction, and Rayner's recent gaffes and public blunders aren't helping. Starmer's blind loyalty in the face of these issues is puzzling to many political observers. History offers cautionary tales of leaders who stood by controversial deputies. Theresa May, for instance, faced significant backlash for her unwavering support of certain figures within her party. These historical examples suggest that Starmer's decision could have far-reaching consequences for Labour's future. The potential long-term impact of Starmer's choice is concerning. Political analysts warn that his continued support for Rayner, despite her controversial statements, could cost Labour dearly in upcoming elections. As more voters express frustration with the party's direction, Starmer's loyalty might be seen as tone-deaf rather than admirable. Labour's internal dynamics are also under scrutiny. Starmer's decision to back Rayner amidst her controversies raises questions about the party's unity and overall direction.
It's a sniper's rifle. But she's used a blunderbuss and she's hit all this lot. It was, as I understand it, it was a very rushed last-minute decision.
This petition will result in nothing. They've got a huge majority of over 400. Doesn't force them to an election, but does get them a debate.
Is this a sign of strong leadership or a dangerous gamble that could fracture the party from within? Looking ahead, the potential impact on Labour's election prospects is worrying. If public frustration continues to grow and the party fails to address key issues effectively, Starmer's loyalty to Rayner could become a major liability. Voters might see it as a symbol of a party out of touch with their concerns, potentially driving them towards other political options. This situation reflects broader issues within Labour. The party seems to be struggling to balance internal loyalty with public accountability. Starmer's defence of Rayner, while perhaps well-intentioned, risks overshadowing Labour's policy messages and alienating voters who expect their concerns to be heard and addressed. As Labour navigates these turbulent waters, one question looms large. Can the party reconcile its internal dynamics with the demands of an increasingly sceptical electorate? The answer may well determine Labour's fate in the coming years and shape the future of British politics as a whole.
This is also a moment to apologise once again to all those who were hurt, to all those who were let down, who no longer felt it was their home. I will defend our decisions in the budget all day long. I will defend facing up to the harsh light of fiscal reality.
Labour's traditional strongholds are crumbling, and the party's leadership seems oblivious to the growing chasm between them and the public. A viral petition demanding Labour's removal from power has taken the internet by storm, reflecting a deep-seated frustration with the party's policies and direction. But what's really driving this disconnect? At the heart of the matter lies a stark contrast between Labour's messaging and the everyday concerns of British voters. While the party waxes poetic about grand visions and lofty ideals, many citizens are grappling with more immediate issues like rising living costs, stagnant wages, and overburdened public services. This disconnect isn't limited to housing and immigration. It permeates almost every aspect of Labour's policy platform. Take, for example, Labour's stance on education. While the party talks about increasing funding for schools, many parents are more concerned about the quality of education their children are receiving and the lack of discipline in classrooms.
Morning, Mr. Clarkson.
Petition that's currently
Your approval
online
ratings have dropped.
1.9 people who want the election to go again.
It's now
Is it 2 million now?
It's now just over 2 million.
Similarly, Labour's environmental policies, while well-intentioned, often seem out of touch with the realities faced by working-class families who can't afford expensive electric vehicles or eco-friendly home upgrades. Labour's attempts to reconnect with their base have been clumsy at best. Party events in traditional strongholds often feel more like PR exercises than genuine efforts to listen to voters' concerns. When Angela Rayner tries to relate to working-class voters, her attempts often come across as patronizing, rather than authentic. It's as if the party has forgotten how to speak the language of the people they claim to represent. The erosion of Labour's traditional support base is becoming increasingly evident. In areas where Labour once enjoyed unwavering loyalty, voters are now looking to alternatives.
I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There would be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place.
And will not raise income tax, will not raise national insurance contributions, and will not raise VAT.
We're not going to increase tax on working people, and that means
The rise of smaller parties and independent candidates in local elections is a clear sign that people are seeking voices that truly represent their interests. This shift could have profound implications for the UK's political landscape. If Labour continues on this path, we could be witnessing the beginning of a major realignment in British politics. The party that once prided itself on being the voice of the working class is at risk of becoming an irrelevant relic, replaced by new political forces that better understand and address the concerns of modern British voters. What does all this mean for the future of British politics? It's clear that the old guard is struggling to adapt to a rapidly changing world. The public's growing frustration with Labour's disconnect could pave the way for a new era of political engagement, where traditional party loyalties matter less than a candidate's ability to genuinely understand and address the issues that matter most to voters.
Not that. I wake up every morning thinking I've got a mandate to change the country. I've got a mandate to improve living standards. I've got a mandate to improve the health service.
I think charging older people on the edge of winter more for their heating is a sign of a Labor Party that's gone mad.
Nearly 100,000 asylum seekers applied to stay in Britain up until September.
As we look ahead, one thing is certain. The British political landscape is in for a shake-up. Whether Labour can bridge the widening gap between themselves and the public remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, the clock is ticking, and the patience of the British electorate is wearing thin. Jeremy Clarkson's confrontation with Angela Rayner exposed deep cracks in Labour's foundation. The housing crisis conundrum and immigration equation revealed a party struggling to reconcile its public statements with internal plans. Keir Starmer's unwavering support for Rayner, despite mounting criticism, raises questions about Labour's ability to adapt and connect with voters. The widening gap between Labour and the public could reshape British politics. Traditional strongholds are crumbling, and a viral petition demanding Labour's removal signals growing frustration. The party's disconnect from everyday concerns threatens its relevance and opens the door for new political forces. As we look to the future, one question looms large. Can British politics evolve to meet the demands for greater accountability and transparency? The answer may determine not just Labour's fate, but the entire landscape of UK governance.